Hi, I hope all the students are preparing well for the upcoming practical exam. So here I am with another presentation, that is second part of Viva questions. So I have compiled a few questions which are generally asked. Generally students have this query that from where to prepare for Viva. So Viva is not something कि आप एक दिन में उसके लिए prepare कर लेंगे कहीं से भी. It is your basic knowledge. Right from the time you started doing chemistry in your syllabus, the basic knowledge can be tested. Here in class 12th, specifically, apart from that basic knowledge, whatever experiments are in your syllabus, whatever project you have done from everywhere and from anywhere, question may be asked. Okay, so let us start with the basic questions. I have compiled 25 questions here, and we can discuss some information around those questions also. So let us start. First question, as you can see, is what is the difference between quantitative and qualitative analysis? So I hope it's very clear how to answer such a question, basic question. Qualitative means you are finding out the quality, the constituents in a given compound. And quantity means you are finding out the quantity, right? For example, here qualitative analysis in class 12th is salt analysis. You are finding out which cation and which anion is there. Or quantitative matlab you are doing titration. So in titration you actually calculate after doing the titration using the readings. आप calculation करते हैं that how much quantity is there in the given solution of that particular solute. So you calculate strength and molarity. तो आपने quantity calculate करी. So that volumetric analysis is an example of quantitative analysis. Next question, a very simple question. What is a radical? So radical may be an atom. It may be a group of atoms which is having charge on it, as you are aware that here in both the cases we can write the charge Cl with the negative charge and sulfate with a different 2 negative charge, maybe NH4 with a positive charge, Pb with 2 positive charge. So all these are radicals. If all are radicals, then what is the difference between them? The difference is that here you have negative charge, negative charge. These are called acidic radicals, as asked in the next question. So acidic radicals, A for acidic, A for anion, आप ऐसे याद कर सकते हैं. Acidic radical, they are anions basically in the salt. Negatively charged ion is acidic radical and positively charged ions are basic radicals. Next is what is the chemistry of flame test? You all do flame test in group 5. You have barium, strontium, calcium there. So you carry out the flame test. Now what is the chemistry behind it? The chemistry is when you are heating those particular salts in the form of their paste in concentrated HCl. You get a specific characteristic color in the flame जो आपको help करता है आइडेंटिफाई करने में that whether it is barium, strontium or calcium. So the chemistry behind it is same, that whenever you heat these chemicals, the electrons which are present in their atoms, they get excited to higher energy level, and when they fall back to the ground state, they give you the particular energy in the form of a radiation which is falling in the visible region. So we call it flame test here. Now what is very interesting here is that why you should make the paste in concentrated HCl always. Something very important. Because by doing so, you are converting the metal compound, the salt, metal salt, to a more volatile chloride form. Chlorides are more volatile. They convert to vapors easily. That's the meaning of being volatile. So it's easy to carry out flame test of chlorides. So we make the paste in concentrated HCl. Next is, why is a platinum metal preferred to other metals for flame test? You all must carry your platinum wire to chemistry lab whenever you know that you are going to test for salt. As in your practical exam also, everyone must carry the platinum wire individually. Now, why platinum metal is preferred there? Because you know that platinum comes in the category of inert metals. It does not get affected by acid. आप HCl डाल रहे हैं पेस्ट बनाने में, and it does not create any other problem, like it does not impart any color to the flame also. It's not easy to excite its electrons by this flame test. So you take an inert metal. That's why platinum is preferred. Now, what is Nessler's reagent? See, I'm not saying that these are the only Viva questions. There is no dearth of questions that may be asked in Viva. इतनी वैरायटी है, इतने क्वेश्चंस हैं, बट आई हैव कंपाइल्ड द बेसिक क्वेश्चंस. पार्ट 1 जो वाइवा मैंने आपके साथ शेयर किया था, एंड दैट ऑल्सो आई टोल्ड यू दैट यू शुड नो द बेसिक आंसर्स एटलीस्ट. बिल्कुल सिंपल वाले तो आने चाहिए, ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए कि बेसिक भी नहीं आता हमें. सो आई हैव कंपाइल्ड द कॉमनली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस. दीज आर नॉट द ओनली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस, ओके. और भी बहुत सारे हो सकते हैं डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द एग्जामिनर. उस टाइम जो आपका प्रोजेक्ट या जो भी एक्सपेरिमेंट सामने आया उससे रिलेटेड कुछ भी पूछ लिया. सो द मोस्टली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस आई एम शेयरिंग. व्हाट इज नेस्लर्स रिएजेंट? इफ यू रिमेंबर, इट्स यूज्ड फॉर ग्रुप 0 NH4+. इसके कन्फर्मेटरी के लिए यूज होता है. सो नेस्लर्स रिएजेंट इज अ सॉल्यूशन ऑफ मर्क्यूरिक आयोडाइड in potassium iodide, and they may ask you the formula K2HgI4. You can see it's a complex coordination compound है. That's how it is different. In salt analysis, we don't use all coordination compounds, but some of them are, which may be asked like this. Then next question number 8 is CO2 and SO2 both turn lime water milky. CaCO3, CaSO3 बन जाता है. Both are turning lime water milky. Then how will you distinguish between them? Lime water is not going to help. So in case of SO2, what you can do? You can pass SO2 through K2Cr2O7. K2Cr2O7 is orange solution. ठीक है? It is orange colored solution. So when you are passing SO2 through it, this orange color will turn to green because SO2 itself is getting oxidized to SO3, and in the process it will reduce K2Cr2O7. So that is how the orange color reduces to green color. This is potassium dichromate और green color का होता है potassium chromate, तो वो उसमें change हो जाएगा because of this redox reaction. So this is how you can distinguish. Question number 9. Why a dark brown ring is formed at the junction of two layers in ring test for nitrates? Now this is something very interesting. You take the salt solution, you are adding ferrous sulfate solution to it, you are mixing them well, and then you are adding concentrated H2SO4 along the side of the test tube. Tilt करके test tube को आप डालते हैं. So a brown ring is formed at the junction of these two layers. Which two layers? One layer which was already there, the aqueous solution of the salt with ferrous sulfate solution, और आपने along the side of the test tube sulfuric acid डाला because it is heavier, so it will sink at the bottom. वो नीचे जाएगा, and the layer at the bottom will be of sulfuric acid. So when sulfuric acid comes in contact with the solution of salt and FeSO4, then it is going to react with very small amount of these chemicals, and only at the interface you get a brown ring. So that is a clear indication that there is nitrate in your compound. Now the question arises, give formula of the complex formed as a brown ring. Or they may ask you that what kind of compound is formed. उसका formula बताइए और उसका nature बताइए. So nature will be, it's a coordination compound which is a complex, right? The formula you may write FeSO4.NO, or you may also give the formula FeH2O5NO. This is the coordination entity, and sulfate outside. Now from here they can ask you that name this coordination compound. If you are being asked to name the coordination compound, then what are ligands? How many type of ligands are there? What are the different type of isomerism? Are you getting it? Just by asking a particular question which is related to a complex like this, we can enter the coordination compounds chapter and ask you anything related to that. What is dd transition? What is delta t, delta o? कुछ भी पूछा जा सकता है. So don't worry about this. You have given so many exams in class 12th, your unit test, your half yearly or pre-board, and still you are preparing for it. So that portion which is related to theory, आपका काफ़ी कुछ prepared है. अभी आपको सिर्फ रिवाइज करना है वट एवर यू हैव रिटन इन योर फाइल. आपका प्रोजेक्ट ढंग से पढ़िए. फ्रॉम योर प्रोजेक्ट एनी क्वेश्चन कैन बी आस्क्ड बिकॉज दैट इज़ योर इन्वेस्टिगेटरी प्रोजेक्ट. आपने उसको परफॉर्म किया. सो यू मे बी आस्क्ड 1 or 2 questions from there. Right? So just read your chemistry file, your project thoroughly, and just go through these questions which I am discussing. Okay. Now next question is, what is chromyl chloride test? This test we carry out for chloride ion Cl minus in the salt. And in this test we do not start with the aqueous solution of the salt. What we do? We start with the dry salt. A pinch of dry salt along with a pinch of potassium dichromate, also dry powder, not in the solution form. Mix it properly, then add concentrated sulfuric acid to it. On doing that, you will get an orangish red kind of vapors which show the presence of CrO2 Cl2 being prepared. This is the gas, chromyl chloride, after which the test has been named. So this gas is evolved. This gas is passed through NaOH solution, which will give you the yellow colored solution. Then you acidify the yellow colored solution with acetic acid and add lead acetate to it. It will give you a yellow precipitate of lead chromate. That is the test. This particular test is done for chloride. You should know the chemistry behind it. But generally, we avoid this test practically if we have choice of doing another confirmatory test. आपको salt में एक preliminary और एक confirmatory करना होता है. So it's better to choose silver nitrate test to avoid any other kind of confusion. But if you have written more than one confirmatory test in your file for different ions, you should know the chemistry, the reactions taking place. So you should read all of them thoroughly, right? As far as performing the test is concerned, we go for something which is easy to do. So we go for silver nitrate test in halides generally. What is the chemistry of carbon disulfide test? This is also called layer test. In this test, you take carbon disulfide, you take the salt solution, you add chlorine water also. Chlorine water. What is the purpose of taking chlorine water here? Because you have bromide, Br minus and iodide. Now what happens that this chloride which is being, the chlorine which is being taken here, chlorine is more electronegative than bromide and iodide. So it will be easy for chlorine to displace the other halides from their solution. And when you remove this halide from the solution by reaction with Cl2 water, Cl2 on reaction with say Br minus, it produces Br2 and Cl minus. Displacement reaction has taken place. Why? Because this is more electronegative. तो उसने Br minus को displace किया. Now this Br2 which is non-polar in nature, it will dissolve in the carbon disulfide layer and you get the orangish color in the layer which confirms the presence of bromine. Same way, when you are taking chlorine water and you have I minus, iodide salt, it gives you I2 and Cl minus. Again displacement, and this I2 dissolves in the CS2 layer. This is non-polar, CS2 is non-polar. Like dissolves like, तो उसमें dissolve होके आपको violet coloration देगा. This is the chemistry behind layer test. अब chloride का क्यों नहीं होता layer test? Because Cl2 and Cl minus if I am taking, no displacement reaction is possible. तो layer test सिर्फ bromide और iodide का होता है. Next question, what is a standard solution? Now we are moving towards the वॉल्यूमेट्रिक एनालिसिस. स्टैंडर्ड सॉल्यूशन क्या होता है? आप टाइट्रेशन करते हैं, देन यू मेक M/20 solution of more salt or oxalic acid, 100 ml of it generally, right? This is the standard solution. Why? Because I know the strength of the solution, so I am calling it a standard solution. What is an indicator? An indicator is a chemical that changes color at the end point. Then question arises, what is an end point? An end point is basically the stage during titration that you carry out when the reaction is just complete. We say that the end point is colorless to pink. By the time you are getting this charge of color, I mean to say the color of KMNO4 is fading away. आप डालते हैं उसको ब्यूरेट से, वो फेड होता जाता है. That means reaction is taking place. KMNO4 is reacting with whatever solution you have taken. ऑक्जैलिक है या मोहर है, दोनों में से जो भी है. इन द एसिडिक मीडियम रिएक्शन अभी चल रहा है. व्हेन द एंड पॉइंट कम्स, व्हेन द रिएक्शन इज जस्ट कंप्लीट, यू विल नॉट गेट एनी कलर क्योंकि अभी भी रिएक्शन हुआ है. व्हेन इट इज जस्ट द केस दैट यू आर एडिंग वन मोर ड्रॉप ऑफ KMNO4 एंड इट इज नॉट रिएक्टिंग, तो आपको पिंक कलर नजर आएगा क्योंकि वो फेड नहीं हुआ. दैट इज द एंड पॉइंट. सो दिस इज हाउ वी एक्सप्लेन दिस, दैट वाई द एंड पॉइंट इज कलरलेस टू पिंक, क्योंकि वो पिंक कलर अब फेड नहीं हो रहा. सो आई एम एबल टू सी इट इवन आफ्टर शेकिंग द टाइट्रेशन फ्लास्क विगरसली. इट्स नॉट फेडिंग अवे, मतलब रिएक्शन इज कंप्लीट. सो इट इज ऑलवेज द एक्स्ट्रा केमिकल विच इज गिविंग यू द कलर, राइट? वाई अ टाइट्रेशन फ्लास्क शुड नॉट बी रिंस्ड? What does it mean? A titration flask, we generally give you the instruction. आप इसको precautions में भी लिखते हैं कि titration flask should not be rinsed again and again. एक बारी titration की, एक reading आई, just empty the flask properly. Do not wash it with water again and again. उसका reason ये है that some water may stick on the inner sides. If you are not washing it properly, not throwing the water properly, some droplets may be there. And then you are again taking the solution 10 ml in it for titration, तो वो dilute हो जाएगा. And when the solution gets diluted, it is definitely going to give you different readings every time. So be careful. Don't wash the flask again and again after every reading. Just take the 10 ml solution, add sulfuric acid, dilute to it, roughly 1 test tube, carry out the titration, then note down the end point, note down your reading. उसके बाद बस खाली कर दीजिए फ्लास्क को प्रॉपरली एंड देन फिल 10 ml अगैन एंड रिपीट द प्रोसेस. व्हाट आर प्राइमरी एंड सेकेंडरी स्टैंडर्ड सब्सटेंसेस और सॉल्यूशंस? नाउ स्टैंडर्ड सॉल्यूशन वी हैव अंडरस्टूड दैट व्हाट इज अ स्टैंडर्ड सॉल्यूशन व्हेन यू हैव द नॉलेज अबाउट इट्स स्ट्रेंथ. नाउ प्राइमरी स्टैंडर्ड मीन्स समथिंग विच इज properly soluble. You are able to make a solution. A high degree of purity is there. It is stable. Stable in the sense it is not absorbing moisture from the surroundings. अगर वो किया उसने तो उसकी मोलैरिटी नॉर्मेलिटी विल चेंज, जो भी आपने बनाई है, क्योंकि एक्स्ट्रा हो गया उसमें सॉल्वेंट. सो अ प्राइमरी स्टैंडर्ड सॉल्यूशन इज दैट सॉल्यूशन which does not change its molarity on standing, does not absorb moisture from the air, stable. The constituents are not separating out from each other. That's why I'm saying highly soluble, as stable, high degree of purity. There are no impurities in it. उसको बोलेंगे आप primary standard, and the other which is not having these characteristic properties will come in the category of obviously secondary standard. You can search for such solutions which come in the category of secondary standard. आपने जो लैब में बनाए हैं मोर सॉल्ट सॉल्यूशन एंड ऑक्सैलिक एसिड सॉल्यूशन, दे बोथ कम इन द कैटेगरी ऑफ प्राइमरी स्टैंडर्ड सॉल्यूशंस. ओके, क्वेश्चन नंबर 18, ब्यूरेट एंड पिपेट. Pipette, I hope you know what is a pipette. Pipette, we generally don't use. After COVID, we stopped using it because you have to use it like a straw. So it's better to avoid. So we are making use of 2 burettes. एक में आप डालते हैं KMNO4 और दूसरे में आप डालते हैं मोर सॉल्ट या ऑक्सैलिक, जो भी आपको टाइट्रेशन करनी है. So even if you use pipette in a particular case along with the burette, then it is always recommended कि burette में आपको KMNO4 डालना है तो थोड़ा सा KMNO4 डाल के रिंस करिए burette को, और पिपेट से आपको मोहर सॉल्ट लेना है तो उसमें भी थोड़ा सा सॉल्यूशन लेके उसको भी रिंस करना है. द रीज़न for this rinsing is that if there are already some water droplets or something else which is sticking to the inner side of these burettes and pipettes, inner walls I should say, तो वो rinsing से clear हो जाएगा. And then you are sure कि अब इसमें कोई water droplets या कोई impurity नहीं है, then you can simply fill the burette and use the pipette if you are using in your school. We generally avoid pipette. I gave you the reason that it's safer to use burette. And there is another technique. This year we did double burette method. I'll talk about it some other time. Abhi to it's not required right now. That is not just using two burettes as we are doing these days. कि एक में KMNO4 डाला, एक में मोहर डाला. That is a different technique. That saves your time and the solution also. So maybe in the next presentation I'll talk about it. Abhi to we are just talking about the simple basic questions for Viva, right? So next question is, what is the indicator used in KMNO4 titrations that you are carrying out? The indicator KMNO4 is self-indicator. How can KMNO4 act as an indicator? Because in acidic medium, KMNO4, which is having Mn in the +7 oxidation state, changes to +2. So the Mn +7, it is pink in color, the KMNO4, and when it changes to Mn2+, it becomes colorless. So because of this, the KMNO4 is able to act as a self-indicator. Question number 20. Why are a few drops of dilute sulfuric acid added while preparing a standard solution of mohr salt? This is to prevent the hydrolysis of mohr salt. Mohr salt has FeSO4 also in it. तो इसका hydrolysis ना हो जाए इसलिए हम dehydrating agent sulfuric acid थोड़ा सा add करते हैं, and then you put some more water, mix it properly and then make the solution up to the required quantity 100 ml या 250 ml जो भी आपको बनाना है. Next question. Sometimes a brown precipitate is observed in KMNO4 titrations. What is the reason for that? Now, brown precipitate is observed when you do not add the required quantity of acid. Because in the absence of sufficient acid, the KMNO4 changes to MnO2, which is brown in color. From +7, Mn changes to +4. That's why you get the brown precipitation. To avoid that, every time when you are taking 10 ml of the solution for titration with KMNO4, add roughly 1 test tube filled with, not up to the brim, roughly 1 test tube filled with dilute sulfuric acid in the titration flask, and then carry out the titration to avoid this. Question number 22. Why KMNO4 is pink in color though Mn has +7 oxidation state in the compound KMNO4? The question is, you must have done DD transition in the chapter coordination compounds. DD transition gives color to the compound. For DD transition, there has to be electron in the d orbital of the metal, which is Mn here. But +7 means there is no electron in the d orbital. Then how can it show the color, and that is to so intense color? The reason is here this is a case of charge transfer. The ligand is giving the electron back to the metal, that case. So from oxygen, the electrons are transferred to the empty d orbital of Mn after the formation of MnO bond. That's how you get the electron in d orbital, and that gives you the color. Charge transfer case. Question number 23. Why should you heat the oxalic acid solution to about 60 to 70 degree Celsius before titrating with KMNO4 solution in the titration? Now, the reason for this is at room temperature, this reaction where the oxalic acid is giving out CO2 and KMNO4 is reacting with it is not possible. So to carry out the reaction, to speed up the process, you need KMNO4 to convert to Mn2+, and for carrying out that particular reaction with oxalic acid, you need at least 60 to 70 degree temperature. Then next, question number 24. What is chromatography? Chromatography is a technique to separate the colored components from a mixture generally, and it is based on adsorption. The component which is getting adsorbed more which is making stronger bond with the adsorbent, that gets absorbed early and it stops, uska spot pehle aa jayega, and the one which is still traveling is getting absorbed later will give you the spot later. This is how you separate the colors. So in class 12th syllabus you don't have red and blue ink separation now. वहाँ पे अब आप salt लेते हैं, copper और iron हम लेते हैं जैसे, and you separate them. So there you need an eluent, क्योंकि color नज़र नहीं आएगा proper, तो बाद में आप उसको dry करने के बाद you put potassium ferrocyanide. Potassium ferrocyanide reacts with Fe3 plus also, with copper ion also, and you get distinct blue and brown colors. So this is the technique that we are using. Chromatography is a general term. It has so many different types of chromatography, column chromatography, TLC, and all. So we are talking about paper chromatography right now, which we carry out in the lab. So here the eluent is potassium ferrocyanide, which helps you to get that color that you can see the components separated clearly. And the principle of chromatography, which is based on adsorption, must also be known to you. So learn that properly for writing in the sheets and in your files. So these are some of the important things related to chromatography. Another important thing is, what is this RF value? RF value is retention factor, also called retardation factor. It is basically the ratio, distance traveled by a component in the mixture divided by the distance traveled by the solvent. And remember that the distance traveled by the solvent is maximum. So the RF value is always less than 1 in every case. RF value should be less than 1. Remember these small things. Do your work nicely, confidently, systematically, and you will do very well, believe me, because you have been doing these experiments throughout the year. तो अभी फाइनल एग्जाम में प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगी अगर आप वैसे ही फॉलो करेंगे सिस्टमैटिकली, प्लान हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू यूटिलाइज 3 hours. Whatever minimum time is required to write the details on the sheet, do that. And after that, perform all the 3 experiments which are given to you. Then sit and write them all together. Okay, so divide your time. कि इतने मिनट में मुझे टाइट्रेशन फिनिश कर देनी है, इतनी देर में मुझे सॉल्ट कर लेना है, फिर क्रोमेटोग्राफी या फंक्शनल ग्रुप करना है. जनरली एज यू ऑल नो, क्रोमेटोग्राफी या फंक्शनल ग्रुप में से एक आता है जनरली. देर आर अदर्स ऑल्सो, काइनेटिक्स है आपके, और भी एक्सपेरिमेंट्स हैं, फूड टेस्ट, प्रोटीन एक्सेट्रा. बट मोस्टली आपसे फंक्शनल ग्रुप या क्रोमेटोग्राफी में से एक पूछेंगे. एक सॉल्ट ज़रूर आएगा. ये चीज़ें मैं पहले भी बहुत बार बता चुकी हूँ. आई एम जस्ट रिपीटिंग सो दैट यू डोंट मिस एनी इंपॉर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन. ठीक है. एंड टाइट्रेशन, ऑक्सैलिक एसिड वर्सेस केमिनोफोर या मोर सॉल्ट वर्सेस केमिनोफोर, एनी वन कैन बी गिवन टू यू. So do written practice nicely, go through the Viva questions. I hope after these 2 presentations you can answer at least the simple questions for chemistry Viva. That's all for today. Thank you very much and all the best.